Is it necessary to stay away from girls to be successful in life? If yes, then why? What does Carl Jung think about this, and what are his views? Let's know. In the vast landscape of the human psyche, there exists a delicate tension between the demands of the inner self and the external world. The journey towards success, often envisioned as a climb towards some summit of achievement, is not merely a matter of external effort, but an intricate dance with the unconscious forces that shape desire, motivation, and focus. Among these forces, the interplay between masculine and feminine energies, what Jung called the anima and animus, holds a profound sway over an individual's ability to harness their true potential. It is said that to succeed in life, one must sometimes retreat from certain entanglements that cloud the mind and scatter the will. The world offers countless distractions, but none more compelling, and at times more consuming than the realm of romantic attachments. The question arises, is it necessary to distance oneself from girls, from romantic involvement, to achieve success? Jung's psychological insights do not prescribe a simple answer, but instead reveal a complex reality. At the heart of the matter lies the process of individuation, the unfolding and integration of the self. Individuation demands clarity, self-awareness, and the capacity to face the shadows within. Relationships, especially those charged with romantic emotion, often act as mirrors reflecting not only the beloved, but also the deepest unconscious desires and fears. When a person projects their anime or animus onto another, they risk losing themselves in the idealization, distraction, or unconscious demands that accompany such projections. This entanglement can be a double-edged sword. On one side, relationships can enrich and nurture, providing grounding and inspiration. On the other, they can ensnare and fragment, pulling attention away from the arduous path of self-realization and achievement. Jung warned that losing oneself in another's image or expectations can stunt growth, leaving the individual caught in repetitive patterns that diminish their creative and purposeful energy. Success, therefore, demands a disciplined engagement with the unconscious, a willingness to confront the shadows of desire and attachment without succumbing. This sometimes necessitates a period of withdrawal or detachment from romantic entanglements to cultivate the strength and independence required for great endeavor. Such withdrawal is not a rejection of the feminine or masculine principle, but a conscious regulation of its influence until the self has matured enough to integrate it harmoniously. Moreover, the societal and cultural contexts can amplify the challenges. The allure of romance often promises fulfillment, yet it can mask a yearning for wholeness that only the self can provide. When a person leans too heavily on another to complete them, they abdicate their own power and risk stagnation. Jung's teachings urge one to find that wholeness within, to meet the anima or animus not in the other, but in the depths of the own unconscious, transforming projections into conscious recognition. In practical terms, this can mean that those striving for monumental success, artists, thinkers, leaders, might find it prudent to set aside romantic pursuits during critical phases of their work. The energy that might otherwise be spent navigating the complexities of intimate relationships can be redirected toward creative output, disciplined study, or visionary planning. This is not an eternal prescription, but a strategic choice aligned with the rhythm of personal growth. In the end, Jung's view is not one of avoidance for avoidance's sake, but of conscious balance. The anima and animus, representing the inner feminine and masculine, must be recognized as vital parts of the psyche. Success flows from their integration, not their suppression. But this integration often requires a period of solitude, self-exploration, and detachment from external relationships that might hinder the process. The journey towards success, then, can be likened to the hero's quest within a solitary venture into the self, where distractions must be set aside to confront the unconscious and claim mastery over one's destiny. In this light, staying away from girls or romantic distractions is not a moral judgment, but a practical step in cultivating the inner resources necessary for profound achievement. As time passes and the individual grows stronger and more whole, the return to relationships can occur with renewed balance and awareness, transforming connections into sources of mutual growth rather than distraction or dependency. Thus, the cycle completes itself, weaving together solitude and intimacy, focus and connection in the tapestry of a fulfilled life. The mind's capacity for focus is fragile, easily fragmented by the tides of emotional impulse and longing. Romantic attraction, while natural and powerful, introduces into the psyche an unpredictable element, one that demands attention, care, and emotional investment. These demands can divert energy away from the solitary work that success often requires. Jung understood this not as a condemnation of love or connection, but as a caution. Before one can truly unite with another, one must first unite with oneself. In the depths of the unconscious dwells the anima or animus, a psychic archetype representing the opposite gender within each individual. For a man, the anima manifests as the inner feminine, shaping intuition, emotion, and receptivity. For a woman, the animus embodies the inner masculine, influencing logic, willpower, and assertiveness. The failure to recognize and integrate these inner figures often leads to projection, attributing these qualities onto others and thereby entangling one's destiny with external forces beyond control. When a person projects their inner feminine onto a woman, they may fall into illusions, seeing not the person before them, but a symbol of unconscious desires, fears, or wounds. This projection blinds the individual to reality and saps their creative autonomy. The resulting emotional turbulence can lead to distraction, mood swings, and a diminished capacity to pursue goals with clarity. It is in this context that Jung's advice takes on practical significance. Until one has met and integrated the anima within, it may be wise to avoid the risks of projection by limiting intimate entanglements. This is not to suggest avoidance forever, but to recognize timing and readiness. The psyche's process is organic, and forcing integration prematurely can cause internal conflict. For many, the path to success is a solitary pilgrimage, demanding periods of introspection and detachment to develop resilience, vision, and self-mastery. The tension between external engagement and internal growth echoes throughout history, where many who achieved greatness retreated from social and romantic involvements during their most productive phases. This withdrawal is often misunderstood as asceticism or denial, yet it is more accurately a strategic harnessing of psychic energy. To remain fully present in one's work, one must guard against the seductive distractions of infatuation and emotional dependency. These states, while rich in feeling, can tether the will to fluctuating moods and external validation, undermining the constancy that success demands. Emotional independence becomes not coldness, but a conscious sovereignty, a foundation upon which relationships can later be built in equilibrium. Jung further illuminated the ways in which relationships serve as crucibles for transformation, where the meeting of anima and animus occurs not only between persons, but within the self. Only through first claiming this inner marriage, integrating the opposites within, can one approach external relationships with wholeness. Until then, relational entanglements risk enmeshing the self in patterns of loss, dependency, or projection that erode the foundation for achievement. Success, therefore, can be viewed as a process of psychological maturation, an evolving dance between solitude and connection, between the inner world and outer reality. The conscious regulation of one's emotional life, including romantic attachments, is an essential aspect of this maturation. For some, this means choosing solitude and abstinence during formative or critical phases, channeling energies into creative and purposeful activity without the interruptions of emotional turbulence. It is important to emphasize that Jung's framework is not a universal mandate, but an individual call. Each person's path varies according to their psychological constitution, life circumstances, and developmental needs. What may be necessary for one's success at one time may not hold for another. The key lies in awareness, understanding the psychological dynamics at play, and making choices that support one's deepest aspirations. In the modern world, where distractions abound and social connections are manifold, the challenge of maintaining focus is even greater. The omnipresence of social media and cultural pressures to pursue romantic fulfillment can make the call for detachment seem countercultural or lonely. Yet Jung's insights remind us that true connection is rooted in inner wholeness, and that the journey toward that wholeness may require temporary withdrawal from external entanglements. As the story unfolds within the individual psyche, so too does the external narrative of success and failure. Those who can master their inner dynamics, regulate their attachments, and channel their energies effectively find themselves on a path that leads to profound accomplishment and self-realization. Those who lose themselves in the illusions of romance before achieving this mastery often find their efforts fragmented and their progress stalled. In this light, staying away from girls or romantic distractions is not about rejecting human connection or femininity, but about respecting the natural rhythms of psychological growth. It is about choosing solitude and self-work over the transient allure of external validation until the foundation of the self is firm enough to support genuine partnership. The conscious mind, striving for achievement, often battles the powerful currents of unconscious desires. Romantic relationships have a unique capacity to stir these depths, awakening emotions and vulnerabilities that, when unexamined, disrupt the clarity needed for sustained effort. Jung's work teaches that these emotional stirrings are not random, but rooted in archetypal patterns inherited through evolution and culture. The anima and animus archetypes act like bridges between consciousness and the unconscious. When a man encounters a woman, he does not simply see her as an individual, but unconsciously interacts with his anima, his inner feminine presence projected outward. The intensity of this projection can lead to idealization or demonization, both of which cloud judgment and erode the steady pursuit of goals. Similarly, a woman meeting a man triggers the animus projection, which can provoke dependency or resistance depending on her psychological readiness. These projections shape not only personal relationships, but also how one relates to life's challenges and opportunities. Success requires awareness of these projections. Without it, one becomes a puppet of unconscious forces, entangled in emotional dramas that consume time, energy, and focus. The wise traveler on the path of individuation learns to recognize these patterns, withdraw projections, and reclaim the power vested in them. This reclamation often means stepping back from external relationships long enough to undertake the inner work. The period of withdrawal is not mere isolation, but an active engagement with the shadow, the anima or animus, and the deeper self. It involves confronting fears, unresolved conflicts, and unconscious desires that fuel unhealthy attachments. During this time, emotional energy is conserved and redirected toward the development of skills, creativity, and self-mastery. The individual learns to listen to the inner voice rather than the clamor of external expectations. This solitude becomes a crucible of transformation, where the raw material of the psyche is forged into the strength and wisdom necessary for success. Only after this inner marriage, the union of opposites within, can one return to the external world to form relationships that enhance rather than diminish growth. Such relationships are based not on neediness or projection, but on mutual respect, awareness, and shared purpose. The decision to stay away from girls or romantic distractions, therefore, is less about judgment or rejection and more about timing and readiness. It is a conscious choice to prioritize the self's development, recognizing that premature entanglement can derail the pursuit of success. Jung's psychology does not deny the value of love or intimacy. On the contrary, it elevates them as higher stages of development attainable only through integration. Until then, the individual must walk the path alone, cultivating the qualities necessary for true partnership and achievement. Thanks for watching. Please share this video.